Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm here to talk to you today about the region of the world where I come from and the latest political changes that are shaping the future of North Africa and the Middle East. As you know, for the past 2 years, revolutions have taken place throughout that part of the world that have modified the political map and the economic infrastructures of many of those nations. As you remember, the birthplace of what we call now the Arab Spring started with the revolution in the tiny North African country of Tunisia. Then it spread to Egypt, Libya, Syria, and to a lesser extent to countries like Bahrain, Oman, Jordan, and even Algeria and Morocco. The hopes and the dreams of millions of people were finally becoming a reality. Dictators were removed from powers. Basic freedoms were restored, opening the doors to a better future and to a better life. I myself could not believe that the Arab world was finally moving in the right direction. People were not scared anymore and were ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for their ideals. 2 years later, the hope turned into despair, the joy turned into sadness, and in some cases, endless internal conflicts have arisen, bringing insecurity and chaos to some countries. Look at Egypt today, a beautiful country with a rich history, where now constant conflicts are taking place between different communities and religious minorities. Or look at Tunisia, where the rights of women were modified in a new constitution, making them inferior to men. Look at Libya, a rich oil country that now faces total political anarchy and is lacking some of the most basic institutions. I'm not even going to talk to you about Syria, where every day children and women die from bombs detonated by their own army. The revolutions have taken place, but chaos has followed. And now we have a political vacuum where anything and everything can happen. The reason for these failures are many, but there is one common denominator in the crisis faced by these nations. Since the early years of independence for most of those countries have been under one form or another of dictatorship. Opposition parties were not allowed, or in some cases, barely tolerated. And their leaders were either put in jail, sent to exile, or killed. This is true about all the Arab countries in North Africa and the Middle East. For a period of 30 to 40 years, these countries have known only leaders who were, for the majority, dictators totally opposed to any power sharing. Look at General Gaddafi of Libya or the former king of Morocco, Hassan II, to mention only two. They made sure that no political opposition would ever be allowed in their respective countries during their time in power. Their combined years in powers just for these two leaders adds up to 80 years. That is why, that after the revolutions of the Arab Spring, those nations are still struggling to find ways to move into a well-defined and constructive political infrastructure with working institutions. All the potential leaders or intellectuals that would have had the ability to form new governments or to give some credibility to their own people have, for most part, been forced to exile or killed during those dark years of dictatorial power. I can go on and give you names of political figures that shaped the national and international political arena who now are not part of this world. Mr. Ben Barka is one of them, this Moroccan intellectual, brilliant mathematician, and leader of the United Socialist Party in the early years of independent Morocco in the 50s and 60s, was opposed to certain policy of the king at the time and challenged some of his decisions. In response, He was challenged, he was kidnapped and brutally killed by the secret Moroccan police. I can also talk to you about Choukri Belaid, the leader of the Unified Democratic Nationalist Party in Tunisia, who was shot dead outside his home 2 months ago. This is why now that we have had this revolution throughout the Arab world, we have no credible leaders that can take and lead these countries to a better future. The political elite that represented the most educated segment of the Arab society was persecuted from the early years of those dictatorial regimes. It's not a surprise if now we have religious parties in power in most of those nations. The Muslim Brotherhood took power in Egypt. Same is true in Tunisia and Libya. So will be the case in Jordan in the years to come. Religious leaders are not the only ones that find themselves in the position to lead these countries because of the lack of any political and serious political opponent. Religion is a great foundation for any given society. It is the pillar of the spiritual life of billions of people. It brings morals and ethics that are important in the world we live in. But I should tell you that religion could be extremely detrimental to a society if its leadership becomes the only political voice of any given country. What is happening now in North Africa and the Middle East are that this religious group, such as the Muslim Brotherhood, to mention only one, are now becoming the only political party in these new liberated countries, and who, by the religious message of helping the poor and the needy, may come to power and install a new constitution that may eliminate those basic freedoms the people of Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya have fought so hard for. Many in North Africa and the Middle East are worried that their revolutions, that they put an end to brutal dictatorships, will now bring a new form of religious fanaticism in countries where they are in desperate need for true economic development and openness. That is why, as a teacher, I always like to take my students to visit that part of the world. I want them to understand what is happening in North Africa and the Middle East, what it means to be an Arab, what it means to be a Muslim, what it means to live in a country where people are still under an absolute monarchy and where change is about to happen. This will only give them a better understanding of the world we live in and a great opportunity to learn about others and themselves. Thank you.